Imagine walking into your first day at a national lab, surrounded by world renowned scientists working with radioactive materials and shielded hot cells, and you're thinking, what am I doing here? That was Marcellus Boykin just one summer ago. Today, he's pursuing a PhD in nuclear engineering at Georgia Tech. But his journey there is anything but typical.
The first day was very nerve-wracking for me because I get imposter syndrome because I have this idea of where I think I should be at, just trying to be a perfectionist, not necessarily reach perfection, but just do as best as I can.
On today's episode of Naked Nuclear, we have a very special student spotlight. Our guest is someone who rewrote his own future, Marcellus Boykin. From a math degree at a D3 college in Alabama, to a mechanical engineering master's at Georgia Tech, and now into the nuclear space, Marcellus brings heart, hustle, and honesty. We talk hot cells, shielding sensors, the GEM Fellowship, the nerves of presenting at ANS, and the faith and focus it takes to pursue a PhD program in one of the country's top nuclear departments. Please stick with us during this episode. We had a few audio glitches, but Marcellus still has so much to offer in this episode.
My name is Marcellus Boykin. I'm currently a nuclear engineer PhD student here at Georgia Institute of Technology. I also received my master's in mechanical engineering here at Georgia Tech. I received my bachelor's degree in math at Birmingham Southern College.
Marcellus didn't start out aiming for nuclear. In fact, his first love was fixing cars. Inspired by his father, also an engineer, Marcellus saw mechanical work as a hands-on path that can combine problem solving with physical skill. But an unexpected detour during his undergrad sent him down a different road.
Growing up, my dad was an engineer, but I just kind of always watched. That was kind of in the back of my head, but on the other side of things, I always loved cars. I kind of wanted to be a mechanic, but just like a person who always wanted to have their hands inside of a hood of an engine. I played football with them, college in Birmingham, Alabama for undergrad. But my sophomore year, the list of schools that you could transfer to kind of dwindled down to like two schools. And then ultimately, there wasn't any other schools I wanted to transfer to. So I ended up having to choose a finite degree at that moment. I kind of weighed my options and I was like, science, I didn't really too much like physics at that time. English, I really don't prefer that either. And so math was kind of like the final option. I'm pretty sure I can just get through math here, obtain a math degree, then pursue this mechanical engineering degree elsewhere. Kind of backwards, like how I managed to get there on the lines of how I found out about it.
That math degree turned into an application to Georgia Tech, where a mentor introduced him to the GEM Fellowship. One of his chosen placements, Idaho National Lab. One call later, he was headed west, even though he didn't know anything about Idaho.
So getting into Georgia Tech, I was working with Dr. Strickland. She works in the C office. And so she helped me with the admissions process to getting into Georgia Tech. And so I met all the qualifications. She helped me just like make sure my application was well rounded. Within meeting Dr. Strickland, she introduced me to the GEM Fellowship.
So within the GEM Fellowship, you list 3 companies that you would like to work with of the companies they have listed. And fortunately enough, INL was one of them. When I say one of them, they were the only one that reached out to me. For me, it was a no-brainer because the GEM Fellowship helps financially. I was just like, okay, I'm spending the summer in Idaho.
So what did Marcellus do at INL? In short, shield a highly sensitive infrasound sensor from massive radiation inside a hot cell, a shielded working space used for handling radioactive materials.
Whenever I got there, I figured out that the project that I was going to be working on this summer was shielding an infrasound sensor for INL's fuel conditioning facility. And within their fuel conditioning facility, or they acronym it as FCF, they house a hot cell. And so within that hot cell, it's a bunch of different processes. Specifically, I was focusing on the element chopper. And what they were trying to accomplish was to sit a infrasound sensor inside of that hot cell, like a meter away from the element chopper, just to pick up readings of the element chopper running. And so just trying to sit that infrasound sensor in that hot cell by itself would obviously just malfunction right away. And so my objective was to shield that infrasound sensor. So I did a lot of CAD modeling in Autodesk Inventor, just trying to configure a way that I could shield this infrasound sensor, but also allow there to be shielding all the way around the infrasound sensor to put inside of that hot cell. If I had to explain this to a high schooler, I would say nuclear energy is on the rise. Where the part that I played in is this nuclear energy that's being used uses nuclear fuel, and these nuclear fuel are in the shape of rods. And as these rods become old, you have to find a way to get rid of them. One of the processes that I was specifically focusing on was the chopping up of these fuel rods. And so within the chopping of these fuel rods, in order to report back to the IAEA that y'all are actually chopping these fuel rods at this time, just to, keep their standards, they use infrasound sensors. Infrasound is just sound that's beneath the audible range of the human ear. They put in these strong sensors that detect sound inside of these facilities. This is what they're wanting to do, just to report these back to the IAEA and keep track of what they're doing. Where I step in is I create a shield to go around the sensor to stick inside of this very irradiated cell. This cell is so irradiated that no one can enter in there at all, or it's just like you'll definitely have very harsh effects.
As a student, who do you work with and how do you get mentors? Your first time at a national lab can be super overwhelming. So I want to know if Marcellus had any mentors.
My mentor was Dr. Luis Ocampo, and Luis was very helpful. He also had three other interns that I was working with, but we all had completely different projects between Luis and my other three interns that I was working with. Really, that whole floor of D200, and so D200 and INL, everybody in there was very helpful. I could go all day naming everybody in there. It was very helpful because you're working with a whole group of world-renowned scientists. Just to have them right there at the palm of your hand, just down the hall, it was helpful in case I needed to understand how another software worked, or if I had another question and Luis just happened to step away, I know there's somebody else down the hall or around the cubicle that I can go to.
We'll definitely have an afterpop breaking down all things hot cell related, but first I wanted to know what was Marcellus's first day at INL? Pre-game jitters? Imposter syndrome? Living across the country in a completely new state?
So the first day was very nerve-wracking for me because I get imposter syndrome. I feel as if sometimes I don't belong where I am. That was very heavy for me, especially because I was all the way in Idaho, because I had this idea of where I think I should be at, just trying to be a perfectionist, not necessarily reach perfection, but just do as best as I can. And sometimes I don't give myself grace. The first day, well, the first couple of weeks were very similar because they were full of training. I spent 3 days doing trainings and then the next 2 weeks doing literature reviews. It was very different for me, not only because I was at a national lab, but because that was my first time sitting behind a computer screen for 9 hours straight. And so that was very difficult. Definitely had picked up a coffee habit. I had to drop it just as quick as I picked it up because that wasn't something that I wanted to bring back to Georgia Tech. I did enjoy how they run at National Lab. And so you just have like you're able to stick your hands in a bunch of different areas. Luis was able to open my eyes to that, which eventually pushed me to pursue my PhD in nuclear engineering.
This is not the first intern or researcher we've had on the show, but a pattern is definitely emerging, which is the power of a good mentor and a strong network. A colleague that could even inspire you to get your PhD in nuclear engineering. Marcellus didn't just intern, though. He presented his work at the ANS Winter Conference, right after a full time researcher. Nerve wracking? Absolutely. But I think it was worth it.
It was directly related to the work that I did. That was actually what I presented on. And so while I was at INL, my mentor, Dr. Luis, he he was just like, hey, I think you should create an abstract. And it was funny how it played out because I think the abstract was doing like the end of the week, and I had to put it together in a couple of days. You had to have introduction, you had to have theory, you had to have a methodology section, and you had to have results. And so, yes, of course, he helped me with it, but it was how quick it had to be put together. We got it put together. And so, yes, I put that together during the summer. That got accepted, and then I presented my research at the American Nuclear Society Winter Conference this past November. It was very nerve-wracking because it wasn't a student presentation. This was actually a real presentation that like other scientists were up there, probably somebody's professor out there was up there presenting. And so me being a student, I was right after them. I definitely did a lot of practicing, but it was crazy because I had to take a midterm. School doesn't stop. And so I definitely prepared the best as I could. And I did well. It even helped me get into the PhD program here at Tech, just because the head of the department was within my session. And so, nonetheless, it was very nerve-wracking. I know I was up there sweating. My presentation didn't get a lot of difficult questions. They were basically just asking me, like, okay, if I were to do this different, like, how would I change it? And I know, like, some of the people were saying one of the suggestions that they would probably look at. I did get a hard one that I had no clue, but luckily he didn't ask me in front of everybody. And at that time, I was a mechanical engineer or trying to get that. So I knew nothing about what he was talking about. And so I was just like, yeah, I'm definitely looking at that next time.
As someone who played football and came from a small liberal arts college, the academic transition to Georgia Tech wasn't always easy. But Marcellus found a rhythm by owning his learning gaps and showing up consistently. I wanted to know what makes Marcellus tick. What motivated him to strive to be better in the face of difficult challenges?
Truly and honestly, I didn't want to do this. It was nobody but God. I would definitely say that. I sat down and I was trying to be finished after I got this mechanical engineering degree. But I felt as if that's what he placed over my life. It looks like I'll be at Georgia Tech a little bit longer. So let's see if I could get into one of these national labs around here after I'm finished with this. But definitely, I didn't know I was gonna be doing this, to be honest. But now that I'm in it, it's just like, okay, and for me, I just have the mindset, okay, if I start something, I'm gonna finish it. And continually trying to just motivate myself each and every day because it's hard. I'd be lying if I sat here and said it's easy. I haven't had the same major, none of the three different degrees that I've tried to achieve. So I really don't have the total background of all these different disciplines that I'm jumping in. It's definitely difficult, but taking it day by day, that's all I can do. Taking it day by day.
Taking it day by day is a good mindset to have. Simple, but sometimes difficult to execute. One of the questions I always want to know, like every student has to figure out, how are you going to pay for it all? Marcellus breaks down his journey through fellowships, scholarships, and the importance of simply asking.
So pertaining to scholarships, unfortunately, undergrad, I was at a D3 school, so we could get academic help. But for undergrad, I'm still kind of working on that because I unfortunately had to take out loans. But for my master's, I was able to get scholarships. And so scholarships and fellowships. So I was a gym fellow as a master's student, and now I'm a gym fellow as a PhD student. And so pertaining scholarship, you definitely have to go look for them. Dr. Strickland helped me just kind of point me in the right direction pertaining to scholarships that Georgia Tech provide. I'm still trying to figure out the whole scholarships thing for the PhD because the gym fellowship they cover you for the first year, and so concerning like your PhD, you have to have funding for the next 3 or 4 years after the first year. And so I'm still applying for fellowships right now, and some haven't opened up right now, but I'll definitely be applying to more fellowships this upcoming fall that will be activated for the next fall of 2026. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the easiest thing. It's not like you know instantly whether you receive the scholarship or not once you submit your application. So it's like you kind of have to leverage your schoolwork, apply for scholarships, and then also having a social life after all of that is going on. If you submerge yourself in school the whole time, you'll go crazy. Some people do it real well, but that's not me. You definitely have to set aside time for it. You have to take it just as serious as you do your coursework. And so with it at Tech, like I was saying, I think they have like a tab to where they provide you with scholarships and fellowships and then the like the links to apply. You definitely have to plan it out accordingly. But I would also say ask peers. So definitely peers who are older than you. I know that in the graduate space that I'm in right now, peers are also looking for scholarships and fellowships. You may have peers who have scholarships and fellowships, and so hey, I'm looking for funding. Like, how did you find funding? What did you do for funding? Where did you apply? And so just reaching out to others as well, not only using the resources that Tech provides or your school provides, but your peers as well.
Scholarships can be tricky, but like we've heard in other student spotlights, start early, get help, and ask around. I also wanted to learn what it was like in Marcellus's classes and how hard being in a PhD program has been.
They haven't been the hardest. So right now I'm in reactor engineering and I'm in radiation detection. Radiation detection has a lab, have a 50-minute lecture, and then a 2 hour and 45-minute lab once a week. This was the first time I've had to write a lab report since my freshman year of undergrad. Just having to dive back into lab reports wasn't the best, but we just submitted our last one for the semester this past Monday. So I'm happy that that's over. But yes, all of it has been hard. Just because it's a totally different language. And so me trying to tackle this totally different language, not being at the undergrad level, but being at the graduate level, they expect you to come in already knowing X, Y, and Z. And by me not having that, I'm having to learn X, Y, and Z plus IJK and all the other things that they're continuing to provide you to learn and then build on top of that. Then I'm in reactor engineering, and that's full of heat transfer and fluids. It's just all the like small meticulous things that happens within a reactor that make all this energy. And so that's been interesting because it involves a lot of math, but you also have your engineering skills within that math. It's other courses that you have to understand in order to get that like heat transfer. I definitely say both of them have been pretty difficult, but I'm getting along pretty well. Classes end in about 2 weeks, and I'm looking pretty good heading to the end of things. Definitely had to take it one day at a time. I entered tech as a mechanical engineer. I know the first week of class coming from Birmingham Southern, I was just walking around, and after I left my first class, I was like, why is everybody on their computer so much? But then as I went into that second class of the day, I quickly realized why everybody is on their computer so much. Georgia Tech is very demanding. And it's not a regular university, it's an institution. They harp on research. They're already expecting you to know a lot. And so it's just like, okay, I have a lot of catching up. Within the mechanical engineering department, the class sizes are the max of 50. Although you have 50 students in there, you can still get that one-on-one experience with your professor. You just have to, sign up for their office hours, make sure that you're attending class, attending those office hours, just so you can create that connection. And so that connection was very big for me because that has allowed me to understand a lot more, just continuing to go into those office hours, trying to get as much information as I can out of those professors, make those connections, make those relationships. That kind of helped me graduate with my mechanical engineering degree for the NRE program, so nuclear engineering. The class sizes went from about 50 max to about 15 max. And so you still have that very one-on-one relationship with your professor. But all professors that I've run into have been very helpful. That I kind of lay down like, okay, what like my background. Like, I have no engineering background whatsoever. Once I laid that down to them, they kind of understood that. And so that allowed them to kind of understand where I'm coming from and then help me get to where I need to be. The faculty has been very helpful in both departments. And so, yeah, very helpful.
And what advice does Marcellus have to students?
Some advice I would give was don't be afraid to reach out. I had to quickly learn I don't know everything. I can't do all this homework by myself. I have to reach out to the peers in the class. Coming from a very small private school to a big school like Tech, reaching out was the most important thing. People say Tech is competitive, but it's like they're competitive with other schools. And so, but within tech, I don't think you find as much competition as you would think. Everybody's willing to help. As long as they're not dragging you, they be willing to help. So what that looks like is showing up in class, not being that person that just shows up once every week instead of twice or once every 3 weeks, taking the initiative. I still have imposter syndrome to this day. It happens every semester. Every semester I run into a new challenge. It's just like, okay, I'm at this roadblock. Like, am I supposed to be here? Like, why is this so hard? But opposed to reaching out, more advice I would have is to make sure you stay in contact with your professor. That has helped me because if you don't show up to class, and whether you know it or not, professors like no, I wouldn't say no matter how big, but once you get up to this graduate level, like your classes go from 200 to 50 to now 15 for me. So they pay attention to you showing up to class every day. That was another one that helped me just by showing up to class every day. I may not ask questions in class because I'm still trying to learn all this information, but if I have questions after going to office hours, being present, making those relationships, I will also say just being active on campus because you never know run-ins. They may not be in your discipline, they may know somebody else who is in your discipline because reaching out and being active on campus has helped me along with staying in contact with my professors, reaching out to peers, just creating those relationships because like you never know who they know. This is my training, so I don't know how to put it into perspective for others. It was like I don't want to fail. If you want to do good, you're gonna step out there and ask because if you don't require you in school, nothing worth obtaining is gonna be easy. And so if it because it feels easy to everybody because majority of the time others in there are wondering the same questions that you're asking as well. They're just not gonna ask. And I guess they'd rather figure it out themselves. For me, if I don't want to feel, quote unquote dumb, then I'll wait till after class, approach that professor. Hey, this is the questions that I have based off of what you just taught. Like if you don't have enough time right now, can I schedule an office hour? So if you don't feel comfortable asking in class, definitely try to schedule an office hour. So it was at one point I was taking the mechanics of dynamics of mechanical systems, and I didn't miss one office hour. I was there every time, every week.
All of which are amazing pieces of advice that are simple in the mind, but sometimes tricky to execute. Now it's time for our rapid fire questions. First question is, do you have any hobbies? If so, what are they?
Hobbies. But whenever I do have free time, I like to set aside time to play the PlayStation 5. Outside of that, getting together with friends, and then other hobbies outside of that. I like to hike. So whenever I wasn't working, I had Yellowstone National Park around me, Grand Teton National Park around me, Craters of the Moon. And so I just like seeing different things. Also working on my car. So I have a 2008 Ford Mustang. So I've had that since I was like 15 and I'm 24 now. So whenever I have time, wash the car, take it for a drive, just enjoying the road.
Okay, next question. If you were to develop and design a futuristic city, what features would you want in it?
City of the future. I'm not a big city type of guy, even though I live in Atlanta. We may have a couple of big buildings, public transportation. Um, I'm trying to figure out all the problems that I have in Atlanta with transportation and try to deviate from those. So something that you wouldn't have a lot of traffic in. If I had to create my own city, I wouldn't want it to be big. I wouldn't want it to be heavily populated. We keep a very small population and just people that are living there. I think that's like my number one thing that gets on my nerves the most is traffic. The other things in the city, just a friendly community where everybody knows everybody.
Favorite food to eat or a favorite dish, like your go-to meal?
Quesadillas, steak quesadillas.
Do you have a certain restaurant that makes steak quesadillas, or are you making them at home?
My go-to meal every day is chicken, rice, and broccoli. But when I don't want that, it's either a steak or a steak quesadilla.
What position did you play in football?
Tackle. The Birmingham Southern was number 90.
If you had to give a TED talk on a non-engineering or nuclear-related topic, what would you choose?
This is a good question because it's like so many pathways I can go down. Okay, slow drivers not driving the appropriate speed in the fast lane. That's something that I think a lot of people need to understand. You have different lanes for different speeds. That's the TED talk. Knowing how to drive At certain ages, you should take the driver's test again. I don't think once you get it at 16, you should still use the same test. I think there needs to be certain lanes for certain ages and certain experiences. That is the TED Talk.
Final question. Let's see. If you were to go vacation, travel anywhere, and spend a whole week, all expenses paid, where are you going?
I'm gonna go outside of the United States. I want to try Tokyo, just because I'm a big car guy and I know the car scene is really popular. To try different culture, see things I've never seen before, all expenses paid. I know that flight probably costs an arm and a leg, so I definitely wouldn't want to take an all expenses paid flight to somewhere in the United States. I'm pretty fashionable outside of school. I would like to say something like I like trying different stuff when it comes to clothes. And so, when at school, I keep it nice, clean cut, but outside, I try different things.
Awesome. Okay, so for the future, for what you're looking at doing after you get your PhD, what's next for you that you want to kind of tackle, you want to challenge?
After this PhD, it's time to get into the real world. It's time to find a job. I definitely be looking for a national lab setting that can kind of house what I like to do, what I'm interested in at that point. Because for me, I'm still trying to figure out like what I want to tailor my PhD towards. I'm gonna definitely be towards the non-proliferation sector, detection and measurement. After that, school is over with. I had enough of school by then that it's time to actually use what I've learned and be an impact somewhere else. Thank you so much for allowing me to come on here and talk about what I've been through, what I have going. I'm blessed one.
From hot cells and shielding to hiking in Yellowstone and dreaming of Tokyo, Marcellus Boykin's journey is one of bold pivots, quiet determination, and a whole lot of learning on the fly. If you're a student wondering if you belong in nuclear, this episode might be your sign. You don't have to know it all, you just have to keep showing up. A huge thanks to Marcellus Boykin for sharing his time, insights, and honesty with us. And another thanks to his mentors. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, share it with your friend, or better yet, share it with a student who's on the fence about nuclear. Until next time, stay curious.